So the saying, if you play with fire, you're gonna get burned, is very true. It's both a consuming force and a cleansing force. You can see it as a force that destroys. You can see it as a force that clears and creates space for new life. The same can be said of major depression. The way that fire just burns, the way that it creeps, and like you can see it as it eats the stick. You get flame, you get heat, you get an experience from it as it goes. But that stick, right, once it's red hot, it grays out and falls. And I'm the stick. I grew up in Louisiana and was really lucky in that my parents were both artists. I got to grow up around my mom, who was a dancer, and my dad, who was a theater professor, director, fight director. I first realized that I was exhibiting symptoms of major depressive disorder when I was about 14. I was uniquely pretty lucky because my mom has major depressive disorder. She watched me and my sister like a hawk and gave us a lot of tools in the toolbox to be able to talk about things that I don't think parents from that generation were particularly good at expressing, you know? But I would say that my mom and dad were really good at that. There is this scream in the back of my head when things are bad. And I started realizing that I wanted to kill myself, is really what it was. Unfortunately, at the time, the medication that I was on was incredibly unhelpful. And I think that the therapist I was with at the time also wasn't very helpful. It just wasn't the right situation for me. You know, nothing really landed. And eventually I kind of followed my dad's advice and just started exercising and fixating, which would not grow to serve me very well, right? That kind of way to fight your depression. I think there was a time where I thought that the fire was like this cleansing experience. It was like this thing that was burning away these depressive feelings, this anger, this frustration, this deep sadness. I had spent time meditating on it and thinking about the metaphor of the flame. You have to, you know, when you're spinning fire, you know, 5 times a day, 6 days a week. It eventually became a representation of my depression because it just consumes everything inside me. Every bit of joy, every bit of the ability to reach out, every bit of empathy just fully burned up. And so, you know, I thought that I was doing something cool by playing with fire. Thought I was, you know, learning how to tame my depression and everything. And, you know, you don't tame fire, you know, you dance with it. Whenever you're getting ready to spin, you're always concerned about an accident. And so there are steps you take to make sure that you limit the possibility of mistakes as much as possible. That process is pretty similar to the things that you do for dealing with major depression, even when you're medicated. You set a good foundation. You give yourself space. If you know that there's going to be fire over here, you should make sure that there is a safe space here. I don't worry so much about falling back as long as I can be consistent with my meds. I did everything else that everybody said to do already, and I have a consistent set of tools in the toolbox because I tried so long to avoid medication that I built myself a lot of systems and was really about putting myself in the best space to grow my emotional health. To be really square with you, I don't spin that much anymore. I've moved on to different practices. I love it deeply, but I don't spend the same time with it anymore. Mostly because I don't need it as much anymore. For me, the medication fixes so much, you know? And I know that there are people out there who that is not the answer. It is for me. I didn't have a scream going on in the back of my head.